Dad, I've gone blind. I need money for treatment, otherwise I'll be in darkness forever. His daughter sobbed into the phone, breaking her father's heart. He gave her everything he had, 50,000 in 4 months, for doctors, medicine, and hope. But then he saw her laughing, sending a mocking text message. It's easier to fool an old man than a child. She had never been blind. When she realized that I had figured her out, her smile disappeared. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The phone shattered my evening like a brick through glass. I'd been sitting in my home office in Scottsdale, leather chair creaking as I leaned back to review the final settlement documents from the pharmacy sale. February in Arizona meant cool evenings, the kind where you could leave windows cracked and feel almost virtuous about not running the heat. Numbers swam across the page, projections, investment allocations, the comfortable mathematics of a well-planned retirement. 62 years old, and I'd finally done it. Built something, sold it, walked away clean. Then Jennifer's name lit up my phone screen. Dad? Her voice came out strangled, barely recognizable. Dad, I need you. I sat forward, documents forgotten. What's wrong? I can't see you. The words tumbled out in a rush, panic making them run together. I woke up 3 days ago and everything was gray, and now... nothing. The doctors say there's a chance, but we have to act fast. My chest constricted. What do you mean you can't see me? Jennifer, slow down. I'm blind, Dad. Progressive retinal deterioration. They did tests, scans, everything. I can't see anything. The room tilted slightly. I gripped the desk edge, forcing myself to breathe. Why didn't you call me sooner? 3 days. A pause, filled with her ragged breathing. Then Kevin's voice in the background, smooth and measured. We didn't want to worry you until we knew more. But the specialist says this experimental treatment has an 80% success rate if we start immediately. I need to come over. I was already standing, reaching for my keys. I'm leaving now. Okay, Jennifer's voice cracked. Okay, Dad, please hurry. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the parking lot of their Tempe apartment complex. My hands trembled as I locked the car. The drive down the 101 and across the Tubaltus had been a blur of streetlights and replaying her words. Progressive retinal deterioration. Blind. 3 days. How does someone lose their vision in 3 days? Kevin answered the door. He'd always been well-dressed, even at home. Tonight was no exception. Pressed slacks, button-down shirt with sleeves rolled to the elbows. The picture of a concerned husband managing a crisis. Simon, thank you for coming so quickly. He stepped aside, gesturing toward the living room. She's been asking for you. Jennifer sat on their couch, absolutely still. Her eyes were open but unfocused, staring at nothing. When she heard my footsteps, her head turned slightly, not quite in the right direction. Dad? I'm here, sweetheart. I moved closer, watching her track my voice rather than my movement. Her hand lifted, reaching toward empty air about 2 feet to my left. The gesture broke something in my chest. I crossed the distance and took her hand. Only when I touched her did her fingers close around mine, desperate and trembling. I'm so scared. Tears tracked down her cheeks. I don't want to live in darkness. Please, I know it's a lot of money, but I can't see any other way. I knelt beside the couch, still holding her hand. This was my daughter, my only child. I'd walked her down the aisle twice now, first to that disaster Michael, then to Kevin last year. I'd taught her to ride a bike, helped her through college, watched her build a career in marketing, and now she sat here, 34 years old, staring at nothing. Tell me everything, I said. Kevin settled into the armchair across from us, pulling a folder from the coffee table. The condition is rare but treatable. There's an experimental procedure, retinal cell regeneration therapy. It's not covered by insurance because it's still considered investigational, but the success rate is remarkable. He opened the folder, spreading papers across the table. I saw medical letterhead, dense paragraphs of clinical terminology, frightening words like irreversible and progressive degeneration. How much? I asked. 15,000 for the initial treatment series. Kevin's voice remained carefully neutral, not pushing, just presenting facts. They need to start within the week. Every day we delay, the damage becomes more permanent. Jennifer's hand tightened on mine. Dad, Kevin and I have been bleeding money on specialists and tests for months. We're maxed out. If you can't help, just tell me now, so I know. Her voice broke. So I know I'll be living in darkness forever. The guilt hit like a physical blow. She was my daughter, and she was asking for help. What kind of father would I be if I refused? You're my daughter, I said, voice steady despite the roiling in my gut. I'll write the check tomorrow morning. She turned her face toward me, still not quite the right angle, and fresh tears spilled over. Thank you. Thank you so much. I stayed another 30 minutes, watching her navigate her own apartment like it was foreign territory. One hand trailed along the wall as Kevin guided her to the bathroom. She moved with exaggerated care, each step tentative. When she returned, he helped her back to the couch with practiced gentleness, his hand on her elbow, whispering reassurances I couldn't quite hear. The medical documents sat on the coffee table. I picked them up, scanning pages that might as well have been written in a foreign language. Phrases jumped out: bilateral vision loss, experimental intervention, time-sensitive treatment protocol. Before I left, I reached out to squeeze Jennifer's shoulder. She didn't react until I touched her. Then she covered my hand with both of hers. I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart. I'll be back tomorrow. The drive home felt longer than the drive there. I merged onto the 202, then north on the 101, the Phoenix Metro sprawl glittering around me. My mind was already calculating which accounts to draw from, how to minimize penalties, whether I should liquidate some of the more conservative investments. 15,000. It was a significant chunk, but I had it. The pharmacy sale had left me comfortable. Not wealthy, but comfortable. This would hurt, but it wouldn't break me. My phone buzzed as I pulled into my driveway, a text from Jennifer. Thank you, Dad. I don't know what I'd do without you. I sat in the car for a moment, staring at those words. Then I pocketed the phone without responding. Too much to process. Too much to feel. Inside, I went straight to my office and pulled out the checkbook. Tomorrow, I'd write that check. Tomorrow, I'd help my daughter see again. The house settled around me, creaking in the cooling night. Through the window, I could see my neighbor's porch light, warm and ordinary. Everything felt surreal. Just hours ago, I'd been planning golf trips and wondering about that cruise to Alaska. Now I was financing experimental medical procedures. But that's what fathers do. We solve problems. We protect our children. I closed the checkbook and turned off the desk lamp. Tomorrow would be soon enough. Morning light cut through my office blinds in sharp geometric patterns. I'd been awake since 5, unable to sleep past the anxiety churning in my stomach. Now, at 8:30, I sat at my desk with the checkbook open, pen poised above the blank line. $15,000. I wrote it out in careful script, then again in numbers. The pen felt heavier than it should. In the memo line, I wrote medical treatment and dated it February 12th, 2025. My account balance, visible on the online banking screen beside me, showed the comfortable cushion I'd built over 40 years of careful planning. This would take a bite, but I'd recover. I tore the check free and folded it into my wallet. The drive to Tempe felt different in daylight. Traffic was lighter, the morning sun making everything look cleaner, more hopeful. Maybe this would work. Maybe in a few weeks Jennifer would call me with good news. Her vision restored, this whole nightmare over. Kevin answered the door again. Simon, come in. Jennifer's resting, but she's been anxious to know if you were coming. Of course I came. I stepped inside, noticing the apartment looked more cluttered than last night. Medical pamphlets scattered across the coffee table, a pill organizer on the kitchen counter, empty tea mugs suggesting a sleepless night for them too. Jennifer emerged from the hallway, one hand brushing the wall, moving with that same tentative care. She wore sweatpants and an oversized shirt, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, the image of vulnerability. Dad? She turned her head, not quite toward me. Right here. I crossed to her, touching her arm so she'd know where I stood. Her hands found mine, and I pressed the check into her palm. She ran her fingers over it, feeling the paper. It's 15,000, Kevin said quietly, moving to stand beside her. Simon, I can't tell you how much this means. We'll get her into the clinic today. Jennifer's face crumpled with relief. Thank you, Dad. Thank you so much. I stayed for coffee, listening to Kevin outline the treatment schedule with the confidence of someone who'd researched everything thoroughly. Jennifer sat quietly, her hands wrapped around a mug, occasionally turning her face toward whoever was speaking. The performance was flawless. 3 days later, my phone rang during lunch. "Dad, I am so sorry to ask again." Jennifer's voice carried that same desperate edge. "But they need to run additional tests before the next treatment phase. It's $3,500. The insurance company is fighting us on every claim." I set down my sandwich, appetite vanishing. "Jennifer, we just paid $15,000. "I know." She sounded close to tears. "But the doctor emphasized we can't delay. Each day matters with retinal conditions. This is standard protocol, apparently. They need to monitor my response to the initial treatment." Kevin's voice came through, authoritative and concerned. "Simon, I've been on the phone with the insurance company for hours. They're claiming it's all experimental and won't cover anything. We're doing everything we can." I rubbed my forehead, feeling the beginning of a headache. "Do you have any savings you can contribute? This is adding up quickly." "Dad, Kevin and I have been bleeding money on copays and specialists for months. We're maxed out." Her voice hardened with hurt. "If you can't help, just tell me now, so I know I'll be living in darkness forever." The guilt was instantaneous and crushing. "No, no, I'll handle it. Your health is what matters. We'll figure out the money." I transferred it that afternoon, watching another chunk disappear from my account. The pattern established itself over the following weeks. Every few days my phone would ring. New urgency, new expense, always delivered with Jennifer's desperate voice and Kevin's supporting medical explanations. Specialized medication, $2,800. Consultant appointments with retinal surgeons, $4,200. Follow-up imaging, $1,900. Each request came with specific medical terminology that made refusal seem cruel, monstrous even. By mid-March, I'd made 2 trips to the bank in 1 week. The teller, a young woman named Maria, started recognizing me. "Everything all right, Mr. Griffin?" she asked as she processed another large transfer. "Family medical situation," I said, not meeting her eyes. I canceled the Sedona trip I'd planned with my old pharmacy colleagues. When Mark called to ask why, I kept it vague. "Jennifer needs me right now. We'll reschedule." Late nights found me at my kitchen table, calculator in front of me. Bank statements spread across the surface. The numbers told a story I didn't want to read. 25,000 in 4 weeks. My retirement cushion, built slowly over decades, was deflating with alarming speed. I started making small economies that felt absurd given the thousands flowing out to Tempe. Store-brand cereal instead of my usual. Skipping the coffee shop I'd visited every morning for 15 years. I told myself it was responsible. But really, it was just a way to feel some control over the hemorrhaging. Each time I wrote a check or authorized a transfer, the hesitation lasted a bit less. This was what fathers did. This was what love required. Jennifer needed me, and I would not fail her. The calls continued. Some days Kevin answered, updating me on Jennifer's progress, with medical details that sounded plausible. Other times Jennifer herself called, her voice a mixture of gratitude and new desperation. The formula worked. Thanked me for the last payment, mentioned slight improvement to give me hope, then introduced the next necessary expense. "Dad, I think I'm seeing shapes," she told me one evening in late March. "The doctor says the treatment is working. My vision is slightly less dark around the edges, but we need to continue the therapy. If we stop now, I could relapse." That word, improvement, hooked into my chest and wouldn't let go. The money wasn't wasted, it was working. We just needed to see it through. I visited their apartment 3 times during those weeks, each time delivering a check in person because it felt more real, more connected than electronic transfers. Each time, Jennifer performed her blindness with heartbreaking consistency. Slow movements, unfocused gaze, reaching for sounds rather than sights. Kevin was always there, the devoted caretaker, answering the door, helping Jennifer navigate, providing updates that sounded medical and legitimate. I never saw Jennifer outside the apartment. She was always there, always recovering, always needing just a bit more help. By late March, I'd reorganized my entire financial picture. I circled accounts I could liquidate without excessive penalties, mentally rescheduled retirement plans, Told myself consulting work was always an option if I needed to rebuild. The pharmacy world would take me back. I wasn't desperate yet, but I was getting there. One evening I sat at my kitchen table with the statements arranged in chronological order. 25,000. In 1 month. My phone lay beside the papers, silent for once. I considered calling my financial advisor, Tom, but what would I say? I'm depleting my retirement savings for my daughter's medical emergency. That sounded exactly like what a good father should do. Tom would probably approve. I gathered the statements and tucked them into a drawer, out of sight. The numbers were depressing, but Jennifer's vision was improving. That was worth any amount of money. The phone rang. Jennifer's name on the screen. I took a breath, squared my shoulders, and answered with a voice that sounded more steady than I felt. Hi, sweetheart. The number on my computer screen hadn't changed in the 5 minutes I'd been staring at it. $50,000. Early May sunshine cut through my office window, making the dust motes dance. I'd always kept this room neat. Pharmacy owners develop an obsession with order, but lately I'd let things slide. Papers stacked unevenly. Coffee rings on the desk. The calendar still showed March. 3 months. I'd drained every liquid account I had. The settlement from the pharmacy sale, gone. My emergency fund, evaporated. The vacation money, the new car fund, the comfortable cushion I'd built over 40 years, all transferred to Jennifer's medical crisis. My phone rang. Jennifer's name appeared, and something in my chest tightened. Hey, sweetheart, I said, keeping my voice light. Dad, I hate asking again. She sounded tired, apologetic. But the therapist recommended some adaptive home technology, special equipment for vision-impaired people, and there's a specialist in Denver who's had success with cases like mine. Kevin found him through a support group. How much? The question came automatically now. $4,500. I know it's a lot. I'll figure it out. I was already calculating which credit card had available balance. After we hung up, I sat there, looking at my empty accounts. I'd been eating cereal for dinner, canceled my streaming services, started buying the cheapest everything. Meanwhile, I was wiring thousands to my daughter. Something shifted in my mind. Not a decision exactly. More like an impulse. I'd bring them groceries. A gesture of support beyond just money. Show them I was thinking about more than just writing checks. 20 minutes later, I loaded bags into my car. Good stuff. The brands I couldn't justify buying for myself anymore. The drive to Tempe was familiar by now. Spring warmth made the desert landscape shimmer. New construction sprouting along the 101 like weeds after rain. I parked in the visitor lot, gathering the bags from my trunk. Their apartment was on the 2nd floor, and I knew the walk well. Bread, milk, fresh vegetables, some decent coffee, small comforts. I'd crossed half the parking lot when I glanced up at the building. The kitchen window was open. 2nd floor, 3 units from the left. I knew that window. Jennifer stood at the counter, phone in hand. She was laughing at something on the screen, her head thrown back slightly. Then she set the phone down and reached for a coffee mug. Smooth, confident, no hesitation at all. The grocery bags suddenly weighed twice as much. I stood frozen, watching her move through the kitchen with complete ease. She opened a cabinet, pulled out a bowl, checked her phone again. Normal, casual. Someone with perfect vision going about their morning. My breath caught, the bags pressed into my palms, handles cutting into skin. I'd seen Jennifer perform blindness dozens of times now. The tentative steps, the searching hands, the unfocused gaze. And here she was, reading her phone screen, navigating her kitchen like anyone would. 30 seconds passed, maybe more. My mind raced through 3 months of panic and sacrifice, trying to find an explanation that made sense. Maybe she was having a good day. Maybe the treatment really had worked and she hadn't told me yet, wanting to surprise me. But she'd asked for more money this morning, for adaptive equipment, for vision-impaired technology. I forced my feet to move, up the exterior stairs, each step deliberate. My expression smoothed into something neutral. The pharmacist's face, calm, professional, revealing nothing. I knocked. Movement inside, footsteps. The door opened. "Simon!" Kevin looked genuinely surprised. "We weren't expecting you. Come in, come in." "Brought some groceries." My voice came out, even controlled. "Thought I'd save you both the trouble of shopping." Jennifer was on the couch, positioned as if she'd been sitting there all along. When she heard my voice, her face turned toward me, not quite at the right angle. Her hand extended, patting the air, searching for the coffee table edge. "Dad, is that you? You didn't have to do that. Kevin helped me up so I can thank him properly." I watched her perform. The careful movements, the manufactured helplessness. Everything I'd seen through that window had been real, and everything I was watching now was theater. "Don't get up." I carried the bags to the kitchen, setting them on the counter beside where she'd been standing minutes ago. "I'll just put these away. How are you feeling today?" "Better, I think." She remained on the couch, her performance flawless. "The new medication is helping. I can sense light and shadow now, which the doctors say is progress." Progress. While this morning she'd been reading text messages. Kevin moved around me, helping to unpack groceries with the proprietary ease of someone comfortable in his space. He looked relaxed, content, not like a man managing a medical crisis, like a man who had everything under control. I stayed 15 minutes, made small talk, asked about upcoming appointments. Jennifer maintained her act perfectly, the right amount of hope mixed with residual fear, gratitude blended with determination. She'd refined it over 3 months. When I left, Kevin walked me to the door. "Thanks for being so supportive, Simon. It means everything to Jennifer, to both of us." "She's my daughter," I said. I walked down those exterior stairs with my hands empty, no grocery bags to carry now. At my car, I sat in the driver's seat, engine off, staring up at that kitchen window. Empty now, just an open rectangle with curtains moving in the breeze. My phone buzzed, a text from Jennifer. "Thanks for the groceries, Dad. You're the best." I read it twice, 3 times. The best. I set the phone on the passenger seat and started the engine. My hands were completely steady on the steering wheel. But my mind was moving fast, clicking through facts like inventory counts, organizing information the way I'd organized prescriptions for 40 years. Systematic, methodical, thorough. The drive home passed in a blur of calculations. Darkness filled my living room. I sat in my recliner, lights off, watching shadows shift across the ceiling as cars passed outside. The untouched dinner plate sat on the side table, pasta congealing. I kept seeing that window, Jennifer's casual movements, her laughter, the way she'd picked up that coffee mug without a single tremor of uncertainty. Then her performance on the couch, the searching hands, the unfocused eyes. 3 months, $50,000. Every scared phone call replayed in my memory, and now they all sounded different, calculated, scripted, unless I'd been wrong. Maybe the light had played tricks. Maybe I'd seen what I expected to see, not what was real. Dawn crept through the windows, gray and gradual. I hadn't slept, hadn't moved except to shift position when my back protested. By 7, I'd made my decision. I needed certainty. At 7:30, I was parked 3 spaces down from Kevin's sedan, in their apartment complex. My coffee cooled in the cup holder while I watched their door. Early morning traffic hummed on the nearby street. A neighbor left for work. Someone walked a dog. Their door opened at 9:15. Jennifer stepped out first, wearing jeans and a fitted jacket. She walked down the exterior stairs with perfect confidence, pulled out her phone, started scrolling while Kevin locked the door behind them. She laughed at something on the screen, showed it to Kevin. He grinned, touched her shoulder. 2 people starting their day. Nothing unusual. Except one of them was supposedly blind. They got in Kevin's car. I waited until they'd pulled out, then followed. Morning traffic was moderate. Enough cars to provide cover, not so many that I'd lose them. They headed north on Scottsdale Road. I stayed 3 cars back, my pharmacy training kicking in. Observe, document, remain objective. Fashion Square Mall. They parked on the 2nd level of the garage. I found a spot several rows away and followed on foot. Inside, the mall was just opening. Stores raising metal gates, displays being arranged. Jennifer and Kevin walked like any couple shopping together. She pointed at a store window. He nodded. They went inside. I kept my distance, using crowds and display racks for cover. In a designer boutique, I positioned myself behind a mannequin display. Jennifer held up a leather handbag, turned it over, examined the stitching detail with her face inches from the seam. She checked the price tag, compared it with another bag, discussed something with Kevin, their voices too low to hear, but their body language relaxed. engaged. She was reading, examining, seeing everything perfectly. My hands were steady as I pulled out my phone and took photos. Jennifer looking at her phone screen. Jennifer comparing price tags. Jennifer making direct eye contact with a sales clerk. Evidence, documentation, facts. They left the boutique empty-handed, wandered through the mall another 30 minutes, then headed back to their car. I let them leave first, then sat in my car in the parking garage for a long time. The photos were clear, undeniable. My daughter had lied to me about being blind. She'd performed a medical crisis. She'd extracted $50,000. The question now was why. Evening, I drove back to their apartment for the third time in 2 days, an orange juice container from my fridge providing the excuse. Kevin answered the door, relaxed and unsuspecting. You didn't have to make another trip. We could have picked some up. Just wanted to make sure you had everything. I stepped inside. Jennifer called from the kitchen, maintaining her performance. Dad? Again? You're spoiling us. I'm just making tea. Want some? No thanks. I can't stay. I moved toward the coffee table. Her phone lay face up, the screen lit with a notification. I stopped beside it, angled my body so Kevin couldn't see my hands, and pulled out my phone. Opened the camera, pointed, clicked. The text message was partially visible on her lock screen. From someone named Bethany. Easier than fooling a child. Just a bit more and we can pay off Kev's debts. I photographed it in under 10 seconds. Dad? What are you doing? Jennifer stood in the kitchen doorway, tea mug in hand. Her voice had changed. Sharper, uncertain. She wasn't performing anymore. I straightened, phone back in my pocket. Just checking if I left my reading glasses here yesterday. But something in my tone must have shifted. Or maybe it was where I'd been standing. Or maybe, after 3 months of successful lying, she'd developed instincts for when the game was threatened. Her smile vanished. She glanced at Kevin, a flicker of panic crossing her face. We stood there, frozen in tableau. Jennifer in the doorway, Kevin turning from the kitchen sink, sensing tension. Me by the coffee table, evidence secure. You can see. The words came out quietly. Not a question, not an accusation, just a statement of fact. Jennifer's mouth opened, closed. She looked at Kevin again, something passing between them. Then her face rearranged itself, calculation replacing shock. Dad, I don't know what you're talking about. I've been practicing moving around without help, that's all. The therapy is working. I'm getting better. Better? I tasted the word. You're getting better. Yes. The doctor said, I saw you this morning. Silence dropped like a curtain. At the mall, I continued, my voice still quiet, still steady. I watched you read price tags, examine merchandise, look at your phone. You're not getting better, Jennifer. You were never blind. Kevin moved first. Simon, I think you're confused. The stress of everything. I have photos. That stopped him. Jennifer's performance shattered completely. The searching gestures gone. The unfocused gaze vanished. She looked at me directly, clearly, and I saw something in her expression I'd never seen before. Not fear, not guilt. Calculation. Cold and sharp. How long have you known? She asked. Long enough. She set the tea mug down carefully on the kitchen counter. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder, older. So what now? You're going to make a scene? Tell everyone? You gave that money willingly, Dad. Every check, every transfer. No one forced you. No. I moved toward the door. No one forced me. Then what are you going to do? I paused with my hand on the doorknob, looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She stood there, fully sighted, fully capable, and completely unrepentant. I'm going to think, I said. Then I walked out, closing the door firmly behind me, the evidence secure in my phone, my mind already 3 steps ahead. The silence in that apartment stretched like wire pulled taut. Jennifer stood frozen in the kitchen doorway, tea mug forgotten. Kevin had turned from the sink, confusion shifting to wariness. My phone sat heavy in my pocket, the incriminating text message captured forever. I pulled it out, held it up so they could both see the screen. I have a photograph of your text message. My voice came out level, almost conversational. The one about tricking the old man, about Kevin's debts. Would you like to explain that? Jennifer's face cycled through emotions in rapid succession. Shock, panic, calculation, Then she crumbled. Tears spilled down her cheeks, her whole body seeming to collapse inward. Dad, you don't understand. Her voice broke beautifully, years of practice making it perfect. Kevin was in trouble and I panicked. I was going to tell you everything and pay you back. Please, you have to understand. I watched her performance with new eyes, saw the mechanics of it, the timing of the tears, the pitch of her voice, the reaching gesture toward me. All calculated, all designed to manipulate. You went through her phone? Kevin stepped forward, his tone shifting to aggressive. You invaded our privacy. That's illegal. If you don't apologize right now and promise to never speak of this, you'll never see your daughter again. He was close now, trying to use his size to intimidate. I didn't move, just looked at him, really looked at him. A man drowning in debt who'd found an easy mark, who'd convinced my daughter to help him steal from her own father. You'll get what you deserve, I said quietly, both of you. Jennifer reached for my arm, that old familiar gesture that used to make me feel needed, protective. I stepped back. The physical withdrawal made something in her face change, desperation giving way to anger. Dad, please. I walked past her, out the door, down those exterior stairs. My car was where I'd left it. I got in, started the engine, and drove home in complete silence. No radio, no music, just the sound of my own breathing and the hum of tires on asphalt. At home, I spread every bank statement across my dining table, found a legal pad, started writing. February 15th, 2025. Phone call. Jennifer claims sudden blindness. February 16th. First check. $15,000. Experimental treatment. February 19th. Additional tests. $3,500. The list went on. And on. $50,000 in 12 entries. Each one documented. Each one obtained through lies. I worked past midnight, building a timeline, organizing receipts, printing emails. My pharmacist's mind took over. Methodical, systematic, thorough. This was just another inventory problem. Just another audit. Except it was my daughter who'd stolen from me. 2 days later, I sat across a desk from Robert Hayes in a downtown Phoenix office tower. Late morning sunlight slanted through floor-to-ceiling windows. Hayes was in his early 50s, graying at the temples, wearing a suit that spoke of success without ostentation. I'd found him through careful research, top-rated for civil fraud cases, experience with elder financial abuse, reputation for thoroughness. "Can I get my money back?" I asked, after laying out the basic facts. Hayes leaned back in his leather chair, fingers steepled. "Civil fraud is actionable in Arizona, but you need documentation. Proof the money was obtained through deliberate false representation. Can you get that?" "I have photos of her shopping, reading, driving. I have a text message admitting the deception." "That's a good start." Hayes pulled a legal pad closer. "But we need more. Surveillance documentation showing pattern of behavior. Evidence the disability claim was fabricated from the beginning. Background on motive. You mentioned debts?" "Kevin Morrison, her husband. The text mentions his debts." "We'll need financial records there, too." Hayes made notes. "I know an investigator. Former police, very thorough. She can document everything we need for court. It'll take about 2 weeks. Cost around $3,000. I thought about my depleted accounts, the credit card I'd used for groceries. $3,000 more. "Do it." Hayes made a call. 20 minutes later, I had an appointment for that afternoon. Patricia Miller met me at a coffee shop near Hayes's office. She was mid-40s, no-nonsense demeanor, notepad already open when I arrived. "Mr. Griffin," she shook my hand firmly. "Robert explained the basics. I need details. Your daughter's routines, schedule, usual locations." It felt surreal, providing surveillance intelligence on Jennifer, but I walked through everything I knew. "Does she drive?" "Yes, Alexis, silver." "Work schedule?" "Marketing consultant, home office mostly, but client meetings throughout the week." "Gym?" "Regular activities?" "Yoga. Thursday mornings. There's a studio on Mill Avenue." Patricia wrote steadily, her pen moving in efficient strokes. When I finished, she closed the notepad and met my eyes directly. 2 weeks. I'll have everything you need." She stood, extended her hand again. I shook it, and for the first time since seeing Jennifer through that window, I felt something shift. Not hope for reconciliation. That was gone. But hope for something else. Justice. The email arrived on a Thursday morning 2 weeks later. Subject line, documentation complete. I clicked the attachment. 47 photographs, 3 video files, a credit report, real estate commission complaints, a detailed surveillance log. I opened the first photo. Jennifer behind the wheel of her Lexus, sunglasses on, head turned to check her blind spot. The casual confidence of someone with perfect vision. Next photo, Jennifer at a fitness center, following the instructor's visual demonstrations in a yoga class. Another, Jennifer at an outdoor cafe, examining a menu, laughing at something her friend said. Each image was time-stamped, GPS tagged, professional, irrefutable. Patricia's report was clinical. Subject exhibited normal vision in all surveillance situations. She drives daily, uses smartphone without assistive technology, participates in activities requiring visual acuity. No evidence of visual impairment observed. I clicked on Kevin's credit report. $78,000 across multiple credit cards and a personal loan. The motive quantified. Then the real estate commission complaints. A 2023 ethics violation. Kevin had failed to disclose foundation issues on a property sale. The client discovered it during the final walkthrough. Kevin's defense, he didn't think it was significant. A pattern of deception, not just with me. A character trait. I printed everything, added it to my case file. The folder had grown thick over 2 weeks. That afternoon, I drove to the Desert Valley Senior Center. Hayes had mentioned they offered free legal consultations on Thursdays. I arrived early, parked in the community lot, walked through glass doors into a building that smelled like coffee and old books. A sign in the lobby. Family Financial Abuse Support Group. 2 p.m., room 3B. I stood there reading it. The meeting was in 10 minutes. The legal consultations didn't start until 3. Something pulled me down the hallway. Room 3B held a circle of chairs, maybe 10 people already seated. An older woman at the front noticed me hovering in the doorway. "Come in, please. We're just starting." Her smile was warm, unforced. "I'm Betty Walsh." I took a seat in the back. People shared stories. A man in his 70s whose grandson had forged his name on checks, 12,000 before he noticed. A woman whose daughter-in-law had emptied a joint account. Another whose caregiver had used his credit card for online shopping. Betty listened to each one with complete attention, offering no platitudes, just presence. "Financial abuse from family cuts deeper than money," she said during a pause. "It's trust destroyed. It's wondering if you meant anything beyond your bank account." The words hit like they were meant for me specifically. After the session, as people filtered out, Betty approached. She moved with the efficiency of someone comfortable in her own body, her gray hair cut short and practical. "You didn't share," she said, not accusatory, just observant. "First time here. Coffee?" She gestured toward the small cafe down the hall. Sometimes it's easier to talk one-on-one. I found myself nodding. We settled at a corner table, 2 paper cups between us. Betty waited, not pushing, just available. "My daughter pretended to be blind," I heard myself say. 3 months, $50,000. I kept writing checks because I thought I was saving her from darkness. Betty's expression didn't change. No shock, no judgment, just understanding. "My son told me his business was failing, needed emergency capital." Her voice was matter-of-fact. "I gave him everything I had liquid, 30,000. Found out later he spent it on his girlfriend's boutique startup. He wasn't even sorry, just angry I discovered the truth." "When?" 4 years ago." She sipped her coffee. "Took me 2 years to stop checking my bank account 3 times a day. Another year to trust anyone again." "How did you—" I searched for the right words. "How do you get past wanting them to hurt the way they hurt you?" "You don't get past it. You get through it. There's a difference." Betty set her cup down carefully. "Justice matters, but it can't be the only thing. Otherwise, they've stolen more than your money. They've stolen who you are." We talked for 90 minutes. I told her about the window, the surveillance, the evidence. She told me about her legal process, her son's partial restitution, the relationship that never fully recovered. She didn't try to fix anything, didn't offer solutions. Just listened, shared, understood. When we finally stood to leave, Betty pulled a business card from her purse, wrote something on the back. "Call if you need to talk. Sometimes it helps to hear from someone who's been there." I looked at the card. her cell number in neat handwriting. "Thank you. You'll get through this, Simon. Different than you expect, maybe. But you will." Driving home, Betty's card sat on the passenger seat. Evening was settling over Phoenix, the sky turning that particular shade of amber that made everything look softer than it was. My phone buzzed. Text from Robert Hayes. "Got your message about evidence. Let's meet Friday to review and discuss filing timeline." I typed back, one-handed at a stoplight. "Friday works." Another buzz. Jennifer's name. I didn't open it, just saw the preview. "Dad, please, can we talk? I want to explain." I set the phone down without responding. There was nothing left to explain. The photos explained everything. The credit report explained everything. That text message, "Tricking the old man is easier than fooling a child," explained everything. Betty's words echoed, "Justice, not revenge." But as the light turned green and I drove forward, I thought about those $50,000, those 12 weeks of fear and sacrifice, those performances Jennifer had perfected. Justice sounded right. The question was what justice looked like. Jennifer's voice filled my kitchen before I'd finished my first coffee. "Dad, how could you do this? You're destroying our family over a misunderstanding." I'd put the phone on speaker to listen to the voicemails. 7 missed calls overnight. 4 messages. I stood by the counter, watching the coffee grow cold, while her voice cycled through emotions with practiced precision. "I was sick. I am sick. The treatment is just working differently than expected. Please call me back. Please." The next message was angrier. Accusations about trust, about abandoning her, about being cruel. The third one returned to tears. The fourth blamed me for her stress, for making her condition worse. I saved each one. Potential evidence of continued manipulation. The calls kept coming throughout the day. I stopped answering after the 7th, blocked her number, went back to organizing documents. Evening brought Kevin's call. I answered this one, curious what strategy he'd choose. "Listen carefully, Simon." His voice was tight, controlled aggression. "We have an attorney now. Your accusations are defamation. You invaded Jennifer's privacy, harassed us, and caused severe emotional distress. Unless you drop this immediately, we're filing our own lawsuit." I let the silence stretch. Then, "File whatever you want, Kevin." I hung up, blocked his number too. The quiet that followed felt like relief. 3 days later, I sat across from Robert Hayes in his conference room. The civil complaint sat between us, 47 pages of methodical documentation. Hayes walked me through each section. Statement of facts, legal basis for fraud claim, damages sought. "Their threats are empty," Hayes said, not looking up from the document. "Emotional distress requires proof of extreme conduct. Exposing fraud doesn't qualify. The evidence is overwhelming. We're filing for actual fraud, which is a tort in Arizona." Patricia's investigation had been thorough. The evidence package was organized into labeled exhibits. Exhibit A, surveillance photographs. Exhibit B, text message screenshot. Exhibit C, video clips. Exhibit D, Kevin's financial records. Exhibit E, the medical records investigation. That last one was devastating. Hayes's investigator had contacted the clinic Jennifer claimed was treating her. The administrator's response had been clear. No patient records for Jennifer Griffin. No appointments. No examinations. No billing. She'd never walked through their doors. The entire medical crisis had been fabricated from the beginning. "What happens after we file?" I asked. "They'll be served within a week. They have 20 days to respond. Given the evidence, I expect their attorney will recommend settlement. But we'll see." I initialed each section of the complaint, signed the final authorization. Hayes's assistant prepared the filing package with efficient movements. Complaint, exhibits, civil cover sheet, summons. She submitted it electronically while we watched. The confirmation came through within minutes. Case number CV-25051847, Griffin v. Griffin and Morrison. It was real now. Official. On record. I drove home through afternoon traffic, feeling something settle in my chest. Not satisfaction exactly, just finality. The decision was made. The machinery was in motion. A week later, on a Tuesday afternoon, the doorbell rang at Jennifer and Kevin's apartment. I wasn't there, but Hayes's process server documented everything. He recounted it to Hayes, who told me over the phone that evening. Kevin answered the door. The process server handed him the papers. Jennifer Griffin and Kevin Morrison, you've been served. Kevin's face apparently drained of color as he read the complaint header. Griffin v. Griffin and Morrison, civil fraud, Maricopa County Superior Court. Jennifer appeared behind him. What is this? Kevin read aloud, voice flat. Plaintiff seeks restitution of $50,000, plus damages for intentional fraud and emotional harm. The process server was already walking away. Jennifer grabbed the papers from Kevin's hands, flipping through pages. The exhibits were all there. Photos of herself driving, shopping, living normally. The screenshot of her own text message about tricking the old man. Her hands shook. Kevin pulled out his phone and started dialing. We need a lawyer. Now. Hayes told me all this with professional satisfaction. The case was filed. They were served. The response deadline was running. Now we waited. Early July heat hit like a wall when I stepped out of my car in the courthouse parking garage. Betty waited by the elevator wearing a simple blue dress, her gray hair catching the fluorescent light. Ready? She asked. As I'll ever be. We rode up together, passed through security, walked corridors that smelled like floor polish and recycled air. Robert Hayes was already at the plaintiff's table when we entered the courtroom, organizing files with methodical precision. Betty took a seat in the gallery behind me. Just knowing she was there helped. Jennifer and Kevin sat at the defense table with their attorney, a man in an expensive suit who looked like he wished he'd taken a different case. Neither of them looked at me. The initial hearing had gone as Hayes predicted. Jennifer's attorney had argued a motion to dismiss, claiming this was a family dispute, not fraud, that I'd voluntarily given money with no expectation of repayment. Hayes had responded with a 2-page evidence summary. The judge denied the motion and set trial for late July. Now, 3 weeks later, we were here. Jury selection took most of the morning. 12 people who would decide whether my daughter had committed fraud. They looked ordinary, tired. One woman kept checking her watch. A man in the back row had kind eyes. Opening statements began after lunch. Jennifer's attorney went first. This is a family dispute, not fraud. Simon Griffin voluntarily provided financial support to his daughter. No written agreement existed. No promise of repayment was made. This is a father who regrets his generosity and now wants it back. Then Hayes stood. His voice was calm, measured, devastating. The evidence will show deliberate, calculated fraud. Jennifer Griffin fabricated a medical emergency. She and Kevin Morrison systematically extracted $50,000 through lies. This isn't family support. It's theft by deception. The text message appeared on the courtroom screen, projected large enough for everyone to see. Tricking the old man is easier than fooling a child. Just a bit more and we can pay off Kev's debts. Several jurors visibly reacted. The woman who'd been checking her watch stopped moving. The man with kind eyes frowned. Patricia Miller testified first. Professional, thorough, unshakable on cross-examination. She documented Jennifer's normal activities over 2 weeks. The photos told their own story. A neighbor testified next. He'd seen Jennifer driving regularly, getting her mail, walking to her car. She'd seemed completely normal. A store employee from Fashion Square remembered her examining merchandise closely, comparing price tags, making eye contact during conversation. No indication of vision problems whatsoever. Then came the medical administrator. Hayes asked the crucial question, "Have you reviewed your clinic's records for Jennifer Griffin?" "Yes, I have. Thoroughly." "And what did you find?" "Nothing. Jennifer Griffin has never been a patient at our clinic. No appointments, no examinations, no treatments, no billing records. She's never walked through our doors." The courtroom went very quiet. I felt Betty's hand find mine during that testimony. Her fingers were warm, steady. I held on. During the afternoon recess, we walked to a coffee shop 2 blocks from the courthouse. The July heat made everything shimmer, but inside was cool and dim. "How are you holding up?" Betty asked. "This can't be easy, hearing it all laid out in court." "It's strange." I stirred sugar into coffee I wouldn't drink. Every piece of evidence validates what I know, but hearing it officially, in front of strangers, it makes it final somehow. She really did this. "She did." Betty's voice was gentle but firm. "And you're doing the right thing, not the easy thing. the right thing. We talked about other things too. Her library work, my pharmacy days, small memories that felt important somehow. The case took up less space in the conversation than I expected. Walking back to the courthouse, I realized I'd laughed twice. Actually laughed. It felt strange and necessary at the same time. The next morning, before testimony resumed, Hayes pulled me aside in the courthouse hallway. Kevin's attorney approached me yesterday evening. Their clients want to discuss settlement. They'll return $20,000 to make this go away. I didn't need to think about it. No. They're offering real money, Simon, more than many fraud victims recover. I want the verdict. I want it in the public record. 50,000 plus damages or nothing. Hayes nodded, something like approval in his expression. I'll tell them. The trial continued. More witnesses, more exhibits. Jennifer's attorney tried to paint me as controlling, vindictive, unable to accept her marriage to Kevin, but the evidence was too strong. The lies were too documented, the text message too explicit. On the final day of testimony, just before closing arguments were scheduled, court recessed until morning. Betty and I walked out together into the late July furnace. The courthouse steps radiated stored heat. "How do you feel about the settlement offer?" she asked. I stopped, looked back at the building, concrete and glass reflecting harsh sunlight. I keep thinking about that text message. Tricking the old man is easier than fooling a child. If I take the 20,000 and walk away, it's like agreeing with her. Like I was easy to fool and that's the end of it. Betty nodded, understanding without words. But if the jury says it's fraud, if it's in the record, then it's not about you being foolish. It's about her being wrong. Exactly. We continued down the steps. My phone buzzed. Hayes, tomorrow is closing arguments. After that, it's in the jury's hands. I showed Betty the message. She took my hand, not the brief comfort of the courtroom, but deliberate, chosen. Whatever happens, you did the right thing. You stood up. We walked toward the parking garage together. The heat pressed down, but Betty's hand in mine felt like something solid to hold on to. For the first time in months, I felt something like peace beginning to form. All rise. The jury has reached a verdict. The courtroom stirred, bodies shifting, fabric rustling, the sound of breath held collectively. I stood beside Robert Hayes at the plaintiff's table. Behind me, I felt Betty's presence like an anchor. Across the aisle, Jennifer and Kevin rose stiffly, their faces pale. The jury filed in. 12 people who'd spent 2 days deliberating. The woman who'd checked her watch during jury selection looked straight ahead. The man with kind eyes glanced at me briefly, then away. The foreperson stood, a woman in her 50s, wearing a blue cardigan. She held a single sheet of paper. The judge nodded. Please read the verdict. We find for the plaintiff, Simon Griffin, on the claim of intentional fraud. Her voice was clear, matter of fact. We award damages in the amount of $50,000 in restitution, $15,000 in compensatory damages for emotional harm. My shoulders dropped. I hadn't realized how tightly I'd been holding them. Jennifer covered her face with both hands. Kevin stared straight ahead, jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. The judge reviewed the verdict form, then looked up. The court accepts the jury's findings. The defendants are ordered to pay plaintiff $65,000, plus court costs of $8,500 on an installment schedule of approximately $3,000, monthly for 24 months. She paused, adjusting her glasses. Additionally, defendants shall provide a written public apology to be filed with this court within 30 days and complete an ethics counseling program within 6 months. This order is entered as of today's date. The gavel came down. Final. Binding. Complete. Outside, news cameras waited on the courthouse steps. Hayes made a brief statement. Justice served, elder financial abuse taken seriously, while I stood silent beside him. Then he guided me past reporters shouting questions I didn't hear. Betty met us at the bottom of the steps. She didn't say anything, just took my arm and walked with me to the parking garage. That evening, she came to my house with takeout. We sat on the back patio as the August heat finally broke. She'd brought Chinese food neither of us ate much of. "You did it," she said finally. "You held them accountable." I stared at the horizon where the sun was setting in bands of orange and purple. I won the case, but I lost my daughter. That's not victory. It's just necessary. Sometimes necessary is all we get. Her voice was gentle, understanding, but it's enough to build on. The news coverage started within days. Local TV station ran a segment. Daughter convicted of defrauding elderly father in fake blindness scheme. The story spread. Phoenix newspaper, online outlets, social media threads. Elder financial abuse case. That's what they called it. 2 weeks after the verdict, Kevin received official notice from the Arizona Real Estate Board. License suspension hearing scheduled. His previous ethics complaints were being reviewed in light of the fraud judgment. Jennifer called my number, forgetting it was blocked. Left a voicemail I listened to once, her voice breaking, asking how this had happened, how her whole life was falling apart. I deleted it. 3 weeks later, the Real Estate Board issued its decision. 1-year license suspension. Pattern of deceptive practices and ethical violations. Kevin couldn't work, couldn't earn commissions. The judgment payments would come from Jennifer's salary alone now. I heard through Hayes that Jennifer's employer had called her into HR. Clients had mentioned seeing the news coverage. She was reassigned from major accounts to internal projects. Effectively demoted. Her professional reputation damaged, perhaps permanently. The consequences cascaded beyond anything I'd anticipated. But I felt no satisfaction in it. Just a hollow sort of completion. Betty and I spent more time together, not discussing the case, just being. She'd come over for dinner. We'd take walks in the evening when the heat subsided, watch old movies, talk about small things that felt important. One evening, maybe a week after the license suspension news, we went to dinner at a quiet restaurant in Old Town Scottsdale. Candlelight, white tablecloths, the kind of place I hadn't been to in years. Halfway through the meal, I reached across the table and took her hand. "Is this okay?" I asked. She smiled. "More than okay." It was our first explicitly romantic date, acknowledged as such. After months of friendship and support, we were choosing something more. I wasn't sure I'd ever feel normal again, I said, like I could trust my own judgment about people. You can trust it. You saw the truth when it mattered. That takes courage. The check arrived several weeks later. Certified mail. $3.63 side to 7. First installment of 24. I opened it at my kitchen table. Betty was there making coffee. I held it up. First payment. 23 more to go. She brought 2 mugs to the table, sat across from me. What will you do with it? I looked at the check, then at her. Something shifted in my chest. Not revenge, not vindication, just possibility. Something I should have done years ago. I set the check down. Will you take a trip with me? Somewhere I've always wanted to see. Where? Grand Canyon. I spent 40 years building a business, then selling it, planning retirement. Never went anywhere. Never made time. I met her eyes. I'm making time now. Betty reached across the table, covered my hand with hers. When do we leave? I smiled. Genuinely. Fully. Perhaps the first real smile since this whole nightmare began. Soon as you're ready. The envelope waited in my mailbox like an accusation. Jennifer's handwriting. I'd recognize it anywhere. The careful loops, the way she dotted her I's with little circles, a habit from middle school that never left. I stood at the mailbox in early September heat, holding the envelope without opening it. First contact since the verdict. 2 months of silence. Broken. Inside, I set it on the kitchen counter. Stared at it. Betty was visiting that afternoon. I'd wait. She arrived at 3, let herself in with the key I'd given her the week before. Found me still staring at that envelope. From Jennifer, I said. Betty didn't ask if I'd read it, just started making tea, moving through my kitchen with comfortable familiarity. When the tea was ready, we sat on the couch together. She didn't push, just waited. I opened the envelope, 3 pages, handwritten. I read aloud, my voice steady even when emotion tightened my throat. Dad, I won't insult you by asking forgiveness. I know what I did. The courtroom, the judgment, seeing it all laid out publicly, it forced me to see myself clearly for the first time. Kevin showed his true self under pressure. I'm filing for divorce. I need to prove to myself I can be better than I was. Maybe someday, years from now, I can prove it to you too. The letter went on. Specific acknowledgments, admissions of manipulation, recognition of harm caused. No excuses. No requests for immediate reconciliation. I set it down when I finished, walked to the kitchen window, stood quiet while Betty waited patiently. "What do you want to do?" she asked finally. "I don't know. Part of me wants to believe her. Part of me thinks this is just another performance. Both can be true." Betty's voice was gentle. "She might mean it now and still fail to follow through. What matters is what you need, not what she needs." 2 days later, over morning coffee, I asked the question that had been circling my mind. "When your son took your money, did you ever forgive him?" Betty considered, stirring sugar she didn't need to stir. "I accepted what happened. I protected myself going forward. We have limited contact now. Is that forgiveness? I don't know. But it's peace, which matters more." That afternoon, I pulled out a note card. Simple. No letterhead. Wrote 6 words. "Time will tell. For now, I'm building a life without deception." Mailed it without ceremony. The following week, Betty and I packed for the Grand Canyon, the trip we'd promised ourselves. I deposited that first restitution check and used a portion to book the lodge. We left Phoenix mid-morning, drove north through Flagstaff, arrived at the South Rim late afternoon. The canyon stretched before us, impossibly vast, layers of rock revealing millions of years in stratified walls. We woke early the next morning to catch sunrise. The sky was still dark when we reached Mather Point, but light was coming. We stood at the railing watching shadow transform to color as the sun rose. Amber, rose, gold. The canyon walls caught fire with morning light. 42 years, I said quietly. I could have come here any weekend. Betty leaned against the railing beside me. "You're here now. That's what counts." We spent the day hiking along the rim trail, not talking much, just walking, looking, being present. The canyon put things in perspective. Problems that felt enormous looked different against geological time. That evening, we returned to Mather Point for sunset. Other tourists gradually left as the air cooled. Soon we were nearly alone. The sun dropped toward the western rim. Light streamed across the canyon, brilliant and brief. Betty's hand found mine. "I spent so long thinking about what they took from me," I said, "but standing here I see what I got back. My ability to trust my own judgment, my willingness to stand up for myself, and," I glanced at her, "the chance to build something real with someone who sees me clearly." "You did that yourself." Betty squeezed my hand. "I just had the good fortune to be here while you figured it out." The sun touched the horizon. Light and shadow played across ancient rock. I watched it, and for the first time in a year, the tightness in my chest, the one that appeared the night Jennifer called about her blindness, finally released completely. I didn't defeat Jennifer and Kevin. I defeated the fear that I'd always be easy to fool, always be just the old man with an open wallet. The light faded. Stars began appearing in the darkening sky above the canyon. We turned from the railing and walked back toward the lodge together. And I knew, truly knew, I wasn't walking away from anything. I was walking toward everything that matters. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.